Hi, I'm Jillian York.
And I'm Matthew Stender.
All right, Matthew, what comes to mind when I say animals?
Animals. Furry. Human.
Being. Face.
Book. Transparency.
Necessary. Work.
Why? Travel.
Everywhere. Money.
Boo. Robots.
Scary. Violence.
Unnecessary. Love.
Necessary.
Facebook.
Unnecessary. No, terrifying. Culture.
Beauty. Freedom.
Want it. Instagram.
Vain.
It's my happy place.
Music.
Beautiful. Mercy.
Essential. Surveillance.
State. Religion.
Say obsolete. Nature.
Peace. Happiness.
Abundant.
All right. What are you doing with your life?
I am trying to think about the ways that humans and technology can coexist in the 21st century. And you? What are you doing with your life?
I'm thinking about the impact of technology on our societies and our cultural values and our freedom of expression. And what is the purpose? Well, this is our project together, Onlinecensorship.org. What's the purpose of this project and what do you do?
Onlinecensorship.org is a project that's trying to bring around increased transparency around the content moderations on social media platforms. And for this project, I sit kind of at the intersection of strategic thinking about the long-term priorities of the project, as well as kind of the design thinking about the way we can craft and design messages that people can kind of empathize with, and so that they can see that these issues are important to them.
Awesome. Well, and I co-founded the project years ago, and I do a lot of the high-level strategy for it, but I also am probably the chief analyst of different stories that come out and different aspects of our reporting and our research.
So you could cover this. Why have you decided to be an activist? And who can be an activist, and what would you say that people should be interested in being an activist for?
Sure. Well, my activism came about historically from when I was living in Morocco in my early 20s. I had experienced internet censorship for the first time, and although freedom of expression, freedom of speech was always something that was important to me, it was also something that I hadn't really experienced growing up in the U.S. except for in a few small cases, and so that got me passionate about looking at the ways that people are restricted in different countries from accessing information or from speaking their minds. And what about you? What do you think? Why have you decided to be an activist, or who can be an activist?
To me, anyone can be an activist, no matter what they do. People from the corporate side, from the government side, from academia, even journalists. I think that for me, one of the roles of activism is that it doesn't necessarily have the same goals or ends, but it's about trying to do something different than the current systems and structures that we exist in, to think about something bigger than ourselves, and to try to put our fingerprint on the future.
All right.
And so, how do you feel that social media impacts people?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, I think that, in some ways, social media is a net good. I think, from my experience has been that it's enabled me to meet people, to have new opportunities all over the world. I mean, I've had really positive experiences with it, but at the same time, I'm troubled by the ways that the architecture of social media affects the way that we interact with each other. And I think that it's something that we really need to think about conceptually and critically. How much time do we want to spend engaging with these platforms? Is it healthy to be connected to them all day long, or is it something that we should be sort of tapping into the same way we would tap into an external social gathering? And for you, I'd like to ask, is it safe for us to be connected to social media all the time, into this sort of second life or alternative world?
To me, that's divided between two questions, kind of the sociological and then the psychological. I think that there's emerging research, even Facebook has now said that being on Facebook all the time is not healthy. And so I think that this notion of health in the age of social media takes on a different context. On the sociological side, that the structures around us, the data that we contribute, the behavioral analysis that's able to run from our input into these systems also gives corporations and by proxy states the ability to understand things about us and our social graphs that we might not even be aware of. And so we're kind of conceding some power that we don't even know we have to external forces, and I find that problematic. How do you see the internet developing over the next 50 years? Does it change the notion of freedom that we have today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not good at conceptualizing the future of the internet. I think that had I thought 10 years ago about where it would be now, I don't know that I would have predicted some of the things that we have at the moment. But I think going forward, I mean, what concerns me, I guess, relating to the previous question that we both answered is, will we be even more interconnected? Will we have, chips in our heads and our ears at all times? Watches have become a thing, and are those tools going to be even more prevalent in our lives? And that's, I think, what scares me the most. I'd like to see more of a kind of slow internet movement. I joke about this sometimes, but I think that finding ways to pull back from this and engage more deeply when we're actually there, to really engage deeply, and then to take ourselves out of that space when we're not there. I think that would be a healthy move in the future. And my question for you, this next one's about identity politics. Do you think it's necessary to describe ourselves through gender, religion, race, the role of society or culture to create a relationship or make contact?
Not necessarily to create relationships or to make contact, but I think that it is important for us to remember that in the age of big data and these other things, that automated decision-making processes are entering in our societies at levels, at all different levels, unlike ever before. And the way that these systems see us is still an artifact of kind of the analog boxes. And so as we go from the analog boxes of race, religion, gender, ethnicity, and mapping this forward to kind of digital structures, that we just need to be conscious that the systems around us may have already made decisions about who we are, and that may affect what we're able to do. And you heard of find face, and if so, are you worried about it? Should we worry about it?
Yes, actually, we gave a talk about this last year at Republica. Yeah, I'm definitely concerned about this. I mean, I think find face was the example where one of the Russian example. All right, so this next question I know is important to both of us. Broadly, what do you think technology's impact on culture is?
I don't see culture as a unified, in one way it's kind of an attribute, a sociocultural attribute, but I think the way that we use culture now is culturally specific. And so I kind of see this interplay both of like culture impressing itself on technology and technology pressing itself on culture. I think that now, because of the major technology platforms are American or Chinese, that we have these kind of specific cultural attributes by the individuals that have created this technology, even if sometimes unbeknownst to them, that the ways in which the architecture of these platforms are created can bring people into this technological environment and which flattens people's interaction norms. It gives them a reference point to kind of see themselves, and so I think that even some of the boxes, as I say, that technology creates for us changes the way that we see ourselves. And so I think that we change the way that we see each other, and technology also changes the way that we see ourselves in the context of this kind of emerging global, technologically driven culture. And for you, how do you feel that? So there was protest, the black protest in Poland. What do you think about it? And do you think that it can bring about some real changes in abortion law? Or do you think that perhaps that the opponents will be capable of restricting women's rights?
Well, I mean, I can't say that I'm, an expert on Polish politics, but I think that it was really powerful to see those images coming out of capitals and other cities. There was also protests here in Berlin in support of that from the Polish diaspora. And I think that, people have power, and I think it's really incredible when they, show up on the streets for something like that. I think it shows what women actually want. And have you heard about the Chinese SCS program, Detailed Citizen Surveillance? And what do you think about the general idea about controlling citizens by the state and assessing them as sort of a good citizen from the perspective of how they behave in their private life?
I think that what's kind of colloquially known as Sesame Credit, a state program rolled out by Ant Financial, which is a subsidiary of Alibaba, it does have the capacity to really influence human agency in the way that we are able to live our lives unimpeded and reach to this higher goal of human flourishing. I think that once the chilling effect that will come from that is people will start to self-censor. For example, over WeChat and other platforms, there's voice recognition and analysis going on that's being rolled out in multiple provinces around China. And so changes even the way that we speak to people on the phone. As interconnected CCTV cameras and even DNA databases come online, we're seeing this 360-degree quantification of the human life in the context of state-defined principles of what is good. And I think that this really impacts the individual about what they want to do with their life and nudges them into what kind of the elements of state control see as appropriate. Do you have a local hero? How do you understand local in this meaning? Do you think that that you are a local hero?
I don't think I'm a local hero. I don't think I'm a hero at all. No, I mean, I don't really believe in heroes. I believe in heroic acts, and I think that there are a lot of people in the history of Berlin who've committed heroic acts, and a lot of them are unknown people, people whose names are not necessarily known to the public. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll ask you the same question.
I do not feel that I'm a hero, nor do I aspire to be a hero. I think that, as you'd said, that the history books are many times written by not the heroes, but by the victors, by those who have had the power. And so the names of people who we've forgotten along the way, from the random acts of kindness on the streets until those who protested, in the face of authoritarianism and fascism. I think that I want to be inspired by individuals, but I've also seen that once people achieve kind of hero status, they can do two things. One, create a cult of personality that can create a single point of failure for an entire movement. And secondly, people see one person as this kind of, on this pedestal and forget about all the other structures that are there to support them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that.
And who is your biggest inspiration?
Well, I mean, I don't think I have a lifetime one, but I would say right now it's Chelsea Manning. I was impressed by her from the very beginning, but particularly since since her sentence was commuted by President Obama, she's gone out and spoken her mind. I mean, I got to meet her a few months ago and see her speak in person, and it was off the record that she asked that no one record it, and she's very natural, very raw in the way that she speaks. And now seeing that she's choosing to run for office, in the US. I think that that's, an incredible move by someone who's only been out of prison for less than a year, who's still adjusting to their normal life. And so I'm really inspired by the passion and the fortitude that she's demonstrated since then, and before then, for that matter. And same to you. Who's your biggest inspiration? Did I steal yours?
I don't know if my inspiration is in fact like an individual. I think it's groups of individuals who, in the face of overwhelming adversity, still choose to stand up for what they believe in. Whether it's Black Lives Matter protesters saying, that this could be any one of us, that it's police having no consequence to shooting unarmed civilians is something they can't stand. I remember seeing very powerful footage of monks protests in Myanmar in 2011, I think, and that led to the deaths of many monks, and so I think that groups of people that come together under a single banner in the face of adversity, with the threat of physical violence or even death, people who are willing to stand up for what they believe in despite the repercussions or consequences, inspire me. And a couple more for you. What do you feel is your biggest achievements, and that you're proud of, but also kind of does that play into your life goal and what you want to achieve?
I don't know. I like to see achievements in small incremental blocks, so it's hard for me to identify one. I guess I would have to say that I think I was one of the first people to bring to light the issues with content moderation on social media platforms. I wrote a paper almost 9 years ago now that brought these issues forward. Even I remember at the time the vice president of Google tweeted it, and it suddenly, the website blew up. It went down briefly because so many people were trying to access it.